1 represents tyranny. 2 is for democracy. 3 is the number of perfection. Above this level is chaos. There is no order. Perfecton is formed from 3 institutions or elements: a theology, an economics, and politics. Theology gives us direction. Economics gives us the method by which we proceed, and politics gives us the procedure or the process we follow. Above every church door ought to be its definition of perfection, and inside its guide for getting us there. What is perfection? The absence of parasitism. Perfection is a world without parasitism. A world that has eliminated parasitism has achieved a state of equality. Equality is defined as a situation in which no one makes claims against anything they did not create, nor refuse claims for anything created by the claimant. The creators of value includes God, meaning we do not make claims against anything created by God, nor refuse his claim to all he created. This principle eliminates all ownership claims by man to assets, which eliminates the use of asset-based currencies. Man adds value to assets, which is equity, and equity can be turned into a form of money. All assets are created by God, and all assets belong to God. We cannot make any legitimate claim against any assets. All are owned by God. Perfection is a nation without parasitism in which citizens possess total equality, defined by being subject to an economy that uses only equity as its form of money. To have equality in a nation requires citizens hold the power of citizenship. Simply put, in any organization, it is the members who define the conditions of membership, up to and including the nation. Citizenship in any organization requires participation. The member must contribute to the organization. This means a citizen is a person who adds value to the assets of the nation. Nations are created things. Nations are not assets. The borders of a nation can be changed, but the nation still remains. To change a nation, the founding documents need to be changed. To eliminate a nation, one must eradicate the founding documents. The nation is a conception, not a collection of assets. The nation is more about the value added to the assets of a jurisdiction than the jurisdiction itself. There is no such thing as natives. No one is native to a nation. They may be native to the region, to the soil, or environmental conditions. But no one is native to a conceptual creation, which is what a nation is. There are 2 races and 2 realities. In the one reality, truth is inductive, and inductive truth is always provisional. The other reality is logical and analytical. Truth is deductive and tautological. In this reality, science can substantiate the derived truths of this reality and give its truths another layer of substantiation. Coupled with the Bible, the truths of this reality are triple verified. I call this conception a priorian reality as compared to physical reality. A priorian reality is perfect and perfectly aligned with God and truth. Truth is perfect if it does not exist. Reality is perfect or it lacks substance. If you are attempting to concoct the nature of truth from disparate impressions gleaned through the senses, you are officially insane. How is the physical mind separated from the rest of physical reality that it can then acquire sense impressions of it through the 5 senses of the body? It is all contiguous. There is no bodily division between space and consciousness in physical reality. It is all one. So, where does perfection begin? Perfection begins with truth. Where do we find truth in physical reality? Is it found among the elements of the periodic table, or in some configuration of same, like a molecule? Is there a molecule of truth, a compound of truth? What is truth to the 5 senses? Perfect truth has no substance, or it would be imperfect, and that is a contradiction. There is no perfection in the flesh, for the flesh is that which has been condemned to mortification. Perfection is found in the truth, in the immateriality of metaphysics. Truth is what coheres. The truth is coherent. Which makes more sense to you? God exists or God does not exist? Do you think reality was spoken into existence, and therefore is more about information than substance? Or do you think it emerged as a substance that so impacted itself it developed all of the structures we see around us, effectively creating awareness in selected parts of itself through this same kind of internally generated events? Interestingly, if you claim the universe is physical, you have no idea what you are talking about, literally. The physical cannot know itself, directly as the physical is actually not aware of itself. You, as a supposedly sentient being, only experiences the result of unobservable phenomenon. The car does not impact another car, The forces that impact other forces are the effects, not the causal event itself. When our hand hits the desk, we have no idea what hits what at the subatomic level. But as soon as we try and talk about physical reality, we become incoherent because the information we have cannot be made to fit the observation. When we claim all of reality is physical, we are using that which is not physical in ways that require non-physical elements. For example, when we say it is true that the universe is physical, we are inserting a non-physical component into what we claim is all physical. To claim that everything is physical is to claim absolutes exist, and that absolute is physical. But absolutes are not physical. Absolute is an analytical idea. Ideas and concepts are not physical, so how do they exist? There is only one science, apologetic, as it tells us the reason for the hope we have. If our hope is not in perfection, we have no hope. Our hope is in the value we add to assets. If our science does not add value, it gives us no hope and is therefore of no value. Science requires God to give it direction and indeed, to give it hope. There are not that many options. We can live off of the world as subsistence gleaners. This makes us parasites. Or we can work and add value to the earth, which reduces or eliminates our parasitism. But the work of one person is incapable of adding much value to the earth. We need the assistance of other people. But how can we work with those who we do not trust and which only see our trust as a weakness? Many work to gain our trust only so as soon as we no longer keep up our guard, they can stab us in the back. If we trust those who only wish us to work and create things of value they can expropriate or steal, we and they will ultimately be worse off than before. Faith is mocked by this world, but it is the only thing we have that makes us human. Those who lack faith have no grounds on which to associate with others. Faith is the glue that holds relationships together. What destroys a relationship more than a breach of trust? Perfecton is an organizational model based on faith. It is perfect because it systematically removes the sources of distrust. If perfection is God and anything less than perfection an idol, then the interest in God and the strength of our faith is inversely related to the desire for that which is less than perfect. The distractions of this world do not directly take our mind off of God. They demoralize us so we no longer seek perfection, but become attracted to that which appears to be more attainable, a goal manifested by that which is less than perfect. Rather than a lifetime commitment, we settle for prostitution and an OnlyFans account. Faith is and must be at the core of any relationship. A perfect organization requires perfection in the way it is fitted together. To do this, we must understand the very fundamental nature of reality and the nature of truth. We have no rights to what we did not produce. The real world was created by God, not by man. Even if you feel to put God aside, you still not claim you have a right to anything physical. Yet, we are faced with an incontrovertible truth. Despite those who claim the world was designed for man, there is little sign of it. Indeed, in many ways the world is inhospitable to our race. There is not much that is useful to us without considerable processing. We even have to domesticate animals to make them suitable for food, and the meat still needs a lot of processing after they are slaughtered. This work of preparing what is natural to what is palatable takes a lot of work. What one person can do in the way of farming and raising livestock is limited. Add to this the making of tools and equipment, and it is impossible for an individual or single family to do much than create a basic standard of living. To move past basic husbandry, there must be specialization. The division of labor needs to move past more than what can be achieved in one family, even if it is large or extended. For advanced civilizations, the level of specialization required means the division of labor must include more than a single community or even nation. The highest and best civilizations require specialization and economies of scale that are global. But few communities have managed to create divisions of labor that are anything more than rudimentary. There is an issue which needs to be overcome, but which is rewarded by this system. People tend to be exploiters of the weak and gullible. If your particular niche gives you an advantage, the tendency is to exploit this. Much is written about tyranny in the form of political power, but charging whatever the market will bear is the same kind of thing in a different system. People are exploited because of an inequity in the system. Perfecton is a model community that operates as a test group as part of a scientific experiment to prove the proposition that perfection is possible. In operation, it eliminates the 10 great evils of unemployment, debt, poverty, inflation, pollution, waste, taxation, homelessness, war, and crime. Needless to say, when these are eliminated, the state, as the mother of all parasites, is eliminated also. The state embodies the proposition that humans are evil and incapable of reconciliation. Humans, in the eyes of the state, are animals that need to be domesticated and husbanded to maintain order. The more tyrannical the state and the steeper the gradient of power between the lower and the higher, the more demonic the system, the more adverse the state is to the idea of equality. It does not matter the terminology used. The power disparity between top and bottom social strata tells you all you need to know about the system's theology. When we eliminate the state along with any of its proto-elements, we get equality. Equality is not a gift or benefit. It is an intrinsic right of all. To have dominion over earth, we must have equality between us. If you or I dictate the terms of equality, it is no longer equality. Equality is you and I being leveled in terms of something greater than either of us. We cannot be equal in a relative sense, but only in an objective or absolute sense. Two rulers are not equal relative to each other, but to an absolute standard. All rulers must adhere to this standard maintained as an unvarying unit of measure to be considered justified. With a conception of perfection, we cannot strive towards it nor be equal in relationship to it. If we are not equal before the concept of perfection, how can we be perfected? How can we be justified in what we are doing, if it leads to separation and inequality? Humans have been given dominion, not for their glory but for God's. We have responsibility over the earth, not as a generality, but in terms of the specific jurisdiction over which we have authority. We can only be justified by adding value to what we have been given. We own what we create, which is the value we add to what was given to us by God. This is the only equality we are able to have. This value we add to assets can be quantified in terms of a unit of account, defined by the value of an hours of work. 1 hour of work may be divided into any number of units, e.g. 30, which would mean that 1 hour of work is valued at 30 units of value. The unit of account is based on preferred shares, as preferred shares represent equity. Equity is the value added to assets. Preferred share used as a unit of account is contracted to prefers and given the symbol when used as a currency. If the community is governed by a commitment to end parasitism and promote equality through the use of a unit of account based on equity, perfection is possible. Apriology is the study of logical coherence and analytical perfection. It marks out a path for the logical to divide from the emotional. Ultimately, the difference is that the emotional are emotional because they have no justification for what they advocate and so resort to emotion. The prefer permits us to divide the logical from the emotional simply by denoting who the parasite is and who the producer of value is. When we do this, we have created a perfect system, a perfecton,